Well, hello! Welcome back to my channel. Drashana here to talk about some friggin' books. I'm gonna try to be real quick with this because I'm bulk filming today and I'm kind of over it and I'm real hot. Oh, Jesus Christ. First book up is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. I do have an individual review. Well, I don't know if it's up yet. I will have one. Oh, God. This is a young adult fantasy in an African-inspired world. It felt, I'm not like some fucking expert on the countries of Africa by any means, but it felt very like North African. And in this world, we have a princess, Karina, who has lost her mother. This is all in the dust jacket, by the way. I'm not spoiling anything. Lost her mother, who was the queen. Karina is the heir, so she has to step up now, but she's real afraid to do this, and she thinks she needs to bring her mother back to life. She finds a resurrection spell in some ancient text, and in order to do this, she needs the heart of a king. In her city, there is this huge festival happening, happens once every 50 years, and there is a competition involved, and she gets to pick the prize. And she decides the prize will be marrying her. So whoever wins gets to marry her and becomes the king, and then she can cut their heart out and do this resurrection spell. And then our male main character, Malik, he is traveling from far away with his older sister and his younger sister, and they are going to try to make some money to send back home. They live in poverty, and their people are oppressed, essentially, and marginalized. But real quickly, things happen, and the younger sister, who's like 5-6 years old, gets taken by a demon, and the demon says, you gotta kill the princess, and then you'll get your sister back. If you don't kill the princess, by the time this festival's over, I'm tearing your baby sister limb from limb. So Malik does not want that to happen. So he joins the competition in hopes that it will get him closer to the princess so he can kill her. And things ensue from there, as you can probably imagine. I really enjoyed the world here. There's magic, and obviously, I mean, there's like demons running around and stuff, but there is other magic involved as well, and the mythology and lore of this world was really cool and really interesting. We have anxiety rep in Malik, and then we have migraine rep in Karina, which was very cool as an episodic migraine sufferer myself. That was really neat to see. Her migraines, there's a little more to them, and so her triggers are not anything that was at all relatable to me personally, and I don't know if it's relatable to anyone. It's basically like difficult emotions and difficult memories would trigger a migraine for her. Very well could be the experience for some. Not for me though, so it wasn't exactly relatable representation, but I still really appreciated having it there. And then I can't speak to the anxiety rep of Malik, but I have seen some reviews where people mentioned it and mentioned being anxiety sufferers themselves, and that it was really cool and that it was done well, so that's cool. So this book was very readable for me. There were some elements that didn't exactly work. I talk about it more in my in-depth review, but I'll just briefly say the motivations. Malik's motivation, completely understood. Karina's motivation, I didn't, like every time she would say, I have to do this. I don't want to kill this innocent person, but I have to. Every time I was like, but you don't though. You could just be the queen. And she just didn't think that she was good enough. So she was like, well, I gotta murder someone then and bring my mom back to life with this spell that I don't even know will work. And that to me just wasn't a strong enough motivation. Basically anyone in Malik's position though would also feel like they have to do it. Your options are sit back and do nothing and don't murder another person, but allow your little sister to die a horrible death. Or commit murder, which you really don't want to do, but you save your sister. I mean, who wouldn't do the latter? You know what I'm saying? His motivation was really strong for me, whereas Karina's just felt kind of weak. I just kept thinking, girl, you don't actually have to do this though. You could just be the queen, which you would have to do eventually anyway. You're just doing it sooner than you thought. I don't know. I didn't love that. So that kind of kept pulling me out of the story. Every time that would come up, I was just like, oh my God, jeez, oh Pete. The ending, a lot happens. It's very exciting. Some things happened in the plot that I personally thought were a bit weak or just didn't really make much sense logically. Things where it pulled me out of the story for a minute with me thinking, wait, what? Why didn't someone, wait, huh? I won't go into it because spoilers, but yeah, just a few things that happened at the ending that didn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me. But also, the ending set us up so well for the next book, and I didn't dislike this book by any means, so I'll probably read the second one just to see if the issues I had, the things that didn't work for me in this book, maybe they'll be gone. And I genuinely enjoyed these characters, Malik especially. He's just so nice. He's so nice. And I would like to see what happens with them for sure. On my 1 to 10, I gave it a 6.14, which translates to 3 Pusheenacorns. Next up, I read Dark Wild Night by Christina Lauren. This is technically book 2 of this series. What is it called? I don't know. But the first book is Sweet Filthy Boy, I think. Wait, maybe this is book 3. I don't know. At any rate, I'm gonna pop it up here. It's adult or new adult contemporary romance, which I just should stop trying. Because so often it just doesn't work for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I lose interest. In the beginning of this one, I was thinking, this is so cute. This is so sweet. There's some tension, and the two characters clearly were into each other. But it wasn't annoying to me at that point. I just thought, oh, these dummies. These sweet, silly dummies. Very sweet friends to lovers thing was happening. I really liked Oliver throughout. I listened to this on audio also, by the way, if that matters to anyone. But yeah, I really liked Oliver throughout, save for a couple of real cringy sex moments where I was just like, oh God, don't say that. The hell, man. And Lola was also fine as a character, but she's so non-communicative, and that irks me on a personal level to no end. So she started to kind of drive me up a wall where I was like, bitch, just tell him what the fuck you're thinking. God. After like 50% or so though, I started to get pretty bored. I just need more going on than two people kind of sucking at communicating with each other and then like breaking up but sort of getting back together and having sex. And then, are we together? I don't know. I need more than that. The final 30% or so, I was heavily, I sped that bitch up so much. Through the sex scenes, like when they would start having sex, I would skip 10 seconds, listen, oh, we're still having sex, skip ahead. I just was kind of over it at that point. I almost DNF'd it, but because I was listening to it on audio and I could speed it up, and it's like a shorter audiobook, I just went through with it, but yeah, I didn't like listen carefully to everything in the ending with the sexy times. Like I said, at the beginning it was cute and sweet, but after a while it just started to feel so redundant and repetitive. If I had $1 for every time they thought about how much they liked each other and loved each other and wanted to be with each other, but didn't think they could because maybe we wouldn't be friends anymore, and we don't want to risk that, do we? But I love him so much. Oh, I just think about him all the time. Like, it was just droning on and on. Every little detail about why they loved this person, just on repeat. Again, might be really enjoyable, probably is really enjoyable for a lot of people to read. For me personally, no. On my 1 to 10, I gave this a 5.5, which translates to 2.5 Pusheenacorns. So not great. Next, I read Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson. This is young adult, magical realism, speculative fiction. We have a First Nations teenage boy, Canadian, dealing with a lot. He's dealing with a lot. His name is Jared, which is my brother's name. Both of his parents are abusing alcohol and drugs. Well, were they both abusing drugs? I'm pretty sure. They're both alcoholics for sure though, and then his mom is abusing other drugs, harder drugs, and Jared himself is abusing alcohol and just kind of flailing through life, trying to survive. Jared is the sweetest, most compassionate, oh, he's just so precious. He just wants to take care of people to his detriment. He's trying so hard, he's in high school and he's trying so hard to keep himself afloat and to keep his mom, who's drug dealing, party girl, just very frivolously going through life. And then his dad, who's an alcoholic, has a new family with a teenage stepdaughter who is pregnant, and Jared is also helping them out. He's dealing drugs to try to help them out. He's basically trying to keep everyone in his life afloat. He, like I said, also abuses alcohol, and he does drugs too, and he starts waking up all the time after blacking out, like in different places, like at different friends' houses, not remembering how he got there. That did start to feel a bit repetitive to me. It's like, okay, I get it. You're drunk again. You're drunk again. You woke up, you blacked out again. You blacked out again. But I mean, that was his life, and that is real life for a lot of people, so. Then he starts to hear this very distinct inner voice, but after a little while, he starts to feel as though someone is actually talking to him, that he can hear someone talking. And he sees crows talking to him, and he thinks, I need to lay off the drugs. What is happening? Content warnings here, trigger warnings definitely for substance abuse, physical abuse, child neglect in a couple of different ways, self-harm, suicide attempt, and some kind of blood and gore in one scene. Well, like in two scenes. And themes included in this book: intergenerational trauma for sure, addiction, specifically addiction within Native communities, and also themes of family. And what does family mean, and how far are you willing to go for your family? Where do you draw the line for family? And that is one of my cons about the book, is I didn't really appreciate the message that I took regarding family. It kind of felt like Jared just put up with anything. I wanted him to actually get away from his situation. His mother, I saw some people in reviews being like, the bond between Jared and his mom was so great. I'm like, she was terrible. She was not a good parent at all. She didn't act like a parent. She didn't really take care of him. She was abusive toward him multiple times, threatening him with harm and death at one point. Like, she was not a good mother. But then she would have moments of being real like, hey there, pal. Oh, it's me and you against the world. And he'd be like, yeah, okay. And yeah, that alone would be really sweet. But in the midst of all this other shit, that's toxic as fuck and also abusive. Emotional manipulation and abuse. He just had it coming at him from all angles. So I didn't really love that in the end, he was still there. Now, he had kind of separated himself mentally and emotionally a bit, but I wanted him to physically get away from her. So magical realism also just isn't typically my thing. I didn't actually realize this was magical realism speculative fiction. I thought it was more straight up fantasy. And I suppose you could argue that it's like contemporary fantasy. But I think in the cultural context of the fact that the fantasy elements come from an actual culture's beliefs, these aren't just, fairy tales. They're part of their belief system. So I think that's why you don't really see it called fantasy. It's called speculative fiction. And that just is difficult for me because I read so much fantasy and I'm so used to fantasy, it makes for a slightly less enjoyable just reading experience for me on a personal level. And some pros, I don't have any experience personally with substance abuse. For myself, I mean, I've partied in my day, but never to a level of like, girl, you gotta get some help. And no one in my immediate life has, at least not that I've experienced. There is a family member who has, but that family member isn't really part of my life. And they weren't really in my childhood either, so even though it wasn't relatable though, I do know people who have gone through this. And some reviews I saw also, people who have experienced this or have had family members, parents, etc., that it was very relatable and a very realistic depiction of what it is like when someone is in the midst of this. And even without substance abuse personally for someone, I've had friends who've had home lives, when I was in high school and stuff, where their home life was tumultuous, to say the least. fighting, parents fighting, just all kinds of crap going on, going down at home, sometimes abuse toward them from a parent, and this aimless wandering that this book felt like to me was very realistic for a lot of people, where like feeling lost, feeling like I don't have a center in life. I don't have a foundation in my life, and that can be so disorienting. And this book felt disorienting at times. Jared's life felt disorienting. And he didn't really have long-term goals. You know, for me, when I was in high school, and I had a wonderful home life. Wonderful home life. I'm so fortunate. Wonderful parents that treated me well. Brother and I got along really well. Absolutely no abuse happening. Just support. Like my childhood, my parents are just supportive. So my high school experience was trying to get good grades and trying to get good ACT scores to get scholarships to get into college, because I'm going to go to this college, and I'm filling out all the FAFSA paperwork and I'm doing all this stuff. But when you don't have that like foundation, you are just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. You're not thinking about these bigger freaking goals. You're thinking about how I can get food to eat for dinner. And again, while it wasn't my experience, I know lots of people who that was their experience, and it just felt very real, very authentic. On my 1 to 10, I gave this a 6.14, which translates to 3 Pusheenacorns. Oh, I never took this down. Whoops. The next book I also have done an individual review for because I had to gush about it. Oh my God. The House in the Cerulean Sea. Cerulean. Why can't I say that word ever? By T.J. Klune. First of all, this cover is so cute, so appealing, so aesthetic. I'm gonna pop that up there. Hope it's not glaring. I will be purchasing a copy of this book because I loved it so much. This is a contemporary fantasy world where there are magical creatures and they have to register with the government, and they are definitely marginalized and oppressed and not given full rights. The magical children, or magical youth, are put into these homes, these orphanages, and our main character, Linus, he's this 40-year-old government worker. He works for this organization, and he goes around to different orphanages, checking them out, making sure everything is on the up and up, and if he feels like the children aren't being cared for properly, he will recommend that an orphanage be shut down. He does this job with a lot of detachment because the rules and regulations handbook tells him to, and because he's just very detached in general from his own life. He's just going through the motions, doing his routine. He has a very small life, a very quiet life. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have family. He just goes to work, comes home, listens to records, feeds his cat, has some sunflowers in the front yard, and that's the extent of his world. But he genuinely cares about the welfare of these children, and that's why he does this job. Because he is so objective and he has this reputation for being so detached and objective, he gets selected by this agency by the upper management, extremely upper management as they are called, and to go on this secret, classified, month-long visit to an orphanage where there are 6 children who are deemed especially dangerous, one in particular. And he has to tell them if these kids are being taken care of by the caretaker, if the caretaker is safe and keeping the children safe, if the children are safe from themselves and from each other, and specifically one child that he is told is extra dangerous, highly classified, people aren't even supposed to know about his existence, and to see what's going on there. So he goes, he takes his cat, he goes to live in their guest house for a month, and things ensue. This book is so, I can't talk about it enough, how sweet it is. So these children are deemed monsters. They are treated poorly by the world, but they hardly ever see the outside world. There's a little village nearby that they almost never go to. When they do go to it one time, most people are okay, but there are some adults who are like, oh, gasp, monsters, get away from my child, giving them crap. But most of the book is them in this orphanage with Linus, with Arthur the caretaker, the master of the orphanage, and then a character named Zoe, who is a fairy sprite who lives on the island. It's her island, and she allows the orphanage to be there. She allows them to live there, and she helps care for the children as well. These three adults are so gentle and sweet with these children and so supportive and so like protective. They're just protecting their gentle little children hearts, and it's so sweet. I don't have words. I don't have words for how much I love this book. So heartwarming and precious and just all the good, sweet, wonderful things. There is also queer representation in this book, and in this world where being magical is like deemed bad and you're ostracized from society and you're marginalized, being queer doesn't seem to be like that. And these characters, I just love them so much. I want to live in this book. I want this to be a series because I just want to live in this world with these characters. I'm not an emotional reader typically. Usually it will take something pretty drastic happening in a book to make me emotional. Or writing, like a writing style that is really like dramatic or moving, you know? This book, I cried, I got choked up at least 10 separate times just from the sheer fucking cuteness of it. There were so many lines. Oh, I read a bunch of them in my individual review. I don't know if it's up yet. If it is, I'll pop it in the cards. But there's so many lines where I just would be reading and be like, oh my God. It's so cute, like, so sweet, so tender, so charming. Read this book. And this was the easiest freaking 5 Pushinicorns I've ever given. And yeah, 5 Pushinicorns, 5 stars, all the stars. I love this book. I want to live in it. I want to be reading this book forever until I die. There we have it. That is all the books. Remember to leave an emoji down below if you just want to say, hey there, what's up, and you don't have anything else to say. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.